Almost every family has a troublemaker. Nations do too. And this week on Terrified Nation, we slow the chaos down from immigration raids, the aftermath of political violence, Israel and Gaza, to examine a pattern as old as America. The provocateurs who spark change, and the profiteers who fuel division. And then, of course, there are the builders who come afterwards to steady the ship. So from the American Revolution to the 1960s to now, we remember this truth. It's we, the people, who choose what comes next. So if you're ready to lift up new leadership and map a path out of crisis, grab the prompts in the show notes and choose your next move. And oh yes, stay tuned and listen to the latest episode of Terrified Nation.
If you've ever felt fear, doubt, or despair about the future of our country, you're not alone. Terrified Nation is a podcast for those ready to face hard truths with open hearts. Hosted by Debilyn. Each episode explores how we can move beyond division and build a society rooted in care, courage, and connection. If this resonates with you, hit follow and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Now here's your host, Debilyn.
Almost every family has its tension and its troublemakers. Growing up, I was the one pushing curfews and testing limits, and to me, it felt like freedom was being curtailed. Well, to my parents, it looked like our survival was threatened, and they didn't know how to keep me safe while keeping peace in the family. Looking back as an adult, I know now it wasn't just about rules. It was about power, protection, and who decides what comes next. And our nation is in that same tug of war because the established authority tries to hold the line with law and order. And the public chafes with injustice or over bureaucracy and demands less government control. Beneath it all, we are arguing about the same thing families fight over. Who gets to decide? So when I left home, new role models appeared. Teachers, mentors, friends. These were people who trusted me so I could learn to trust myself. I could set my own guardrails and boundaries to feel safe and free. And that shift really mattered in my growing up. Families themselves change when new role models show up. The same can be true for our nation. But how do we go from conflict and violence and outrage to making better choices about our shared future? Well, believe it or not, there is a cycle here. So let's explore. When our public life feels stagnant or unfair, provocateurs arrive. And they say what others won't. They are trying to wake us up to notice what isn't working. Historically, let's look at four: Thomas Paine, Frederick Douglass, Mother Jones, and Malcolm X, each of whom jolted the country. During the American Revolution, Thomas Paine, in common sense, blasted hereditary monarchy as a fraud and demanded immediate American independence and self-government. He woke some people up. Before the Civil War, Frederick Douglass searingly asked what the 4th of July is meant to enslaved people. He was indicting a nation that celebrated liberty while upholding bondage. And during the dawn of our industrial age, Mother Jones shamed industrialists by parading child laborers and urging workers to fight like hell for their lives and their rights. And then, of course, in the civil rights era of the 1960s, Malcolm X called for Black self-determination and self-defense by any means necessary. He rejected the gradualism and seeking white approval for Black liberation. Today, we see versions of this provocateur energy in Greta Thunberg when she told the world leaders to act like the house is on fire and accused them of stealing her generation's future through climate inaction. Malala Yousafzai continues to insist that books and girls' education are more powerful than bullets, in defiance of the extremists who would still like to kill her. And Cornel West continues to denounce neoliberal Democrats and right-wing authoritarians alike, demanding moral accountability over party loyalty. Boy, I'd love to see some of that today. Another example here, Pope Francis rebuked an economy that kills, urging the church and governments to confront greed, inequality, and climate neglect. And now Pope Leo has expanded on Pope Francis's work with a call for more unity among bishops to advocate for the poor and migrants as an evangelical hallmark. He's trying to reclaim some language there, don't you think? And lastly, Chinese artist Ai Weiwei exposes authoritarian abuses through art and activism, arguing that censorship and surveillance are the true threats to social order. Any of those ideas ring a bell? Each one of these provocateurs become a lightning rod for criticism or death threats. And they are hoping to open the minds of others so that we can all discover new paths towards freedom for everyone. But there's another force at play here, and that's the conflict profiteers. They don't resist chaos, they need it. In the past, this role has been occupied by Southern slaveholders or strike-breaking industrialists who killed people for striking, or segregationist politicians who insisted that Black and white people could not go to school together or drink from the same fountain. They all leverage division to keep power. And today, that business model for conflict profiteers is what turns ratings and clicks and outrage into fortunes. Think Alex Jones and InfoWars. And we've seen it in the US with Israel and Gaza. For 2 years, hostage horrors and Gaza attacks have been mined for clicks and donations and power, turning real human suffering and grief into ammo for domestic culture wars. If anyone asks you to hate your neighbor more than they ask you to protect civilians, you're looking at the outrage economy, and it's not a path to peace. Or look at immigration this month. In Chicago and its suburbs, a dramatic SWAT-style raid arrested 37 people in a huge apartment building. This touched off frequent demonstrations and a city hall order declaring ICE-free zones. In Portland, Oregon, hundreds of protesters converged on the ICE building, some after an emergency naked bike ride, and ended in pepper balls and 2 arrests for mutual assault. So the human stakes are real, and the incentive to weaponize them for clicks and donations is just as real. So we have the provocateurs and conflict profiteers. And then there are the hybrids, people who both provoke and profit. They spark confrontation to gain attention, and then turn that attention into money, power, and platforms for their followers. The politics may differ, but the pattern repeats. And this is where many current public figures fit. On the left and on the right and in pop culture. They provoke and then they monetize the moment or mobilize a cause. And sometimes it's both. The point I'm making isn't to disrespect these individuals. It's to help you notice the incentive structure that keeps the fire hot and we the people divided. It's the incentive structure that rewards division that I believe needs to be dismantled. So in real life, Charlie Kirk embodied this hybrid role. He was a provocateur and organizer with a large youth following, and he has been credited with Trump's 2024 election victory. So his assassination in September 2025 tore through communities and media ecosystems like a raging wildfire. Campuses tensed up, commentators scrambled, and of course, conspiracy theories bloomed before we had the facts. Grief and anger landed in very different places for different people, and the outrage economy thrived. So here's what I want to say about Charlie Kirk's impact. If you admired Kirk, your grief is real. If you feared his politics, your fear is real. And if you are part of any group targeted by the conspiracy theories, rumor, and blame game of the conflict profiteers, your dread is real. You see, multiple truths can be true at the same time. And our task isn't to win the grief or anger or dread contest. It's to decide, what do we build after the shock and shouting ends? So we won't stay in chaos or crisis forever. We will wear ourselves out with it. We will look for steadiness, and then we start building what's next. We can see the historical pattern of what happened after eras of high tension and division. These eras ended when the public was emotionally drained and tired of conflict or war. Then we found solutions. I hope we are near this point today, and I'm sure you do too. So after the American Revolution, Washington, Madison, and Hamilton turned that energy of rebellion against a monarchy into a governance structure. Imperfectly, yes. But they designed institutions and norms to outlast any single person and hopefully to withstand the greed for power. We're testing that today. After the Civil War, the Reconstruction era amended the Constitution to include freedom for all men, even as violence and backlash undercut the enforcement and progress of those amendments. These were seeds of progress that left many wounds open to fester, and we're still living with some of that today too. After the financial crash of 1929 and the beginning of the Great Depression, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal, FDR's New Deal, steadied families and re-regulated the financial industry. And to some, it was salvation, and to others, it was government overreach. But either way, it rebuilt the floor or foundation of our nation by providing a social safety net for the poor. And of course, in the 1960s, the civil rights movement expanded dignity and voice. Following this upheaval, law and order politics promised stability. And trust rose in some places and it cracked in others. Again, this is uneven progress, but back towards an equilibrium of more cohesion and less division. And of course, the Voting Rights Act ensured access to voting that earlier backlashes had removed. So history's lesson isn't to calm down, it's fine. It's work with the turning. Because when exhaustion sets in, people choose stability and the builders get their chance to work. So who do we, the people, lift up as our next leaders to continue turning this wheel of progress? Will we seek the sages who tell hard truths without inflaming division? Or will we turn to caregivers who help communities heal following outrage and division and breaking of relationships? And who will be the builders who take on this dogged work of creating new schools and new healthcare systems and new economies and energy delivery or taxes? Who's going to form the institutions that touch our daily lives? So, what vision will our new leaders hold? Will they restore order through holding the powerful people accountable? Will they expand freedom through economic opportunities for all? Or will it be something simple like FDR did and having a vision of a chicken in every pot, a good life vision that appeals to all of us? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it. And this brings up our personal responsibility. What will be our own role as we support new leadership? My role is as a storyteller and a sense maker, and on my best days, I may be a guide to help others find their way. For you, the most important choice is to create a better vision for your own life and then work to make it so in your own community. I know I am happiest when I'm helping others to make their lives better too. So, this is where there's an exchange of support and assistance that builds really strong bonds with each other. So, I'm going to start closing the show here with just asking a few questions like, do you know what you want for your life? And I offer these prompts for your reflection. And there's going to be a little pause after each one, so don't go away. So, what type of leader do you long for right now? Are you looking for that wise, sage-like person? Do you need some nurturing from a caregiver, or are you all ready to build? Or maybe it's something else. What type of leader are you longing for right now? All right, here's the second question. Where is one place, like your family, your workplace, your neighborhood, where you can lower the temperature of outrage without silencing truth? And here's this last one. What are you imagining for your own future? If you'd like to ponder any of these a little bit more, you're invited to try our Jedi Futures personal visioning tool. It's a simple journaling exercise that you can do alone or use it as a party game with friends and start imagining the future you really want to live. You can download the visioning tool using the link in the show notes or go to jedifutures.org and click on programs. Well, that's it for this show. Thank you so much for listening and for choosing your role with the best of intentions. And as always, join me next time.
That's Terrified Nation, a podcast from American Future. If this episode moved you, please help others find it. Leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. For early access to new episodes, become a paid subscriber at terrifiednation.com. Join us next time.